What you're about to see is a remote viewing session that was conducted totally blind by the remote viewer. The remote viewer knows nothing about the nature of the project or the target, but I'm going to tell you what the target is so you can follow along when the remote viewer describes what the remote viewer perceives during the session. At the end of the session, I will then tell the remote viewer what the target is, and then you will see the response from the remote viewer when the remote viewer understands what the actual perceptions were relating to. So here is the actual target for this session. The Chinese influencers of the U.S. elections in 2024. Now, the target subject is the most senior operative, subject A, working for mainland China, who will be the most successful at interfering with the outcome of the elections in the United States through any means and in any way in 2024. So this is not simply thinking that there would be influence with regard to computer hacking or anything. We don't know what the most important means of influencing would be. So there are three focuses. The first focus is in March 2024. This is being recorded in February, so it'll be next month. So the focus is the operative, subject A, working for mainland China when most deeply involved in doing and planning influencing through any means the outcome of the 2024 U.S. elections during the target month for the given focus, and that is March 2024. Now the second focus is same thing, but October 2024, in the heat of the elections. Now, also remember, we're not stating which election. We're just stating during the election, so it could be for any office. Now, their focus 3 is for November 2024, immediately after the election, so we can see what the response is. So, focus 1, March, during the primary season. Focus 2, October, in the heat of the main campaign, right before the election. Focus 3, right after the election in November, All right, so let's see what the remote viewer perceives for this target.
Hi everybody, welcome to Deep News. Here we have Intysam, and Intysam, why don't you just take it away? Start off wherever you seem fit. I know page 4 you get some general environmentals, and page 5 you got an interesting sketch. So why don't you tell us what the target environment initially starts to look like?
Yeah, so I have a level topography. The land looks man-made. I also have like a moderate amount of water. So all in all, it's like an urban environment, like a city type with multiple structures, subjects all around. I got a lot of subjects, so I was thinking it was like maybe it's a focused gathering, but I didn't have a chance to like really look into it at this point in the session. But the subjects here were the dominant element of this target.
I see. Okay, well, you went to the center of the target and you started to look at focus 1 on the page 6. Why don't you tell us what you found there?
So for this focus, I got a target subject, a male subject with a lighter skin tone and short hair, somewhat round face with like chubby cheeks, and some roughness to his face. So I could see like he had some dark eyes, and the clothing feels slightly rough, textured sort of thing. And the subject appears to be neatly dressed, clothing covering his arms and legs, and middle age. So not old, but not young.
I see. Okay, well, I see also that you kept going with descriptions of that target. You moved to the target subject at the target time for focus 1. So what happened later on in the next page?
So this subject is within a focused gathering or a crowd, or maybe surrounded by subjects. And it looks like they're within a large, somewhat open room. I added a picture. There's an air of formality here, a lot of chatter, multiple voices all at the same time. So it looks like it's a crowd or a focused gathering, mostly made up of male subjects, and a heightened energy in this space and within the subjects. And then looking closer at the subjects, everybody's dressed pretty formally.
I see. Okay. Well, you also have this target subject that you've been pointing at, the one with the dark clothing. You started doing deep mind probes on that subject. What happened there?
So the subject's mind feels somewhat frenzied, like a lot of info is coming towards him way too quickly. The subject feels like he has a fortified mind, strong opinions that are hard to sway. Subject has several dealings he's thinking about, and I got a sense that he's putting a front in regards to something. Like he feels quite stubborn, hard to relate to. So I was trying to probe into like what is this guy's job anyway, right? And I see him talking a lot. His job involves travel. Like I'm seeing him in a non-surface structure quite a bit. This subject is connected to very influential subjects. They feel very powerful to me. And I see these powerful subjects as shadowy figures, like they're not meant to be seen. Their will is enacted through this particular subject. So I deducted a lobbyist. So this subject, this is subject A. Subject A also acts as the face of the action and the agenda of this kind of shadow subject.
I see. I see. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I see you continued as well. What else did you find? You moved into this shadow group and stuff like that. What else did you talk about?
So subject A moves from the shadow group, and then I see him in front of a focused gathering. It feels like he takes the message from the shadows and then convinces and sways or persuades a larger group of this message slash agenda slash action, or no, whatever this is. So at this point, I deducted a senator because it felt political. Whatever's happening here started to feel political to me. Subject A and the group of subjects around him have a similar public persona. It's like it's their job to convince a larger group of subjects. So at this point, it feels like you have subject A, right? He's all in his formal attire and stuff. And then you have the shadow group right behind him. And they have and this is like, in my mind, it looks like they've fish hooked him. So he has a fish hook, but he's trying to get other subjects also like fish hooked. He's trying to hook them, right? And I sense more shadow groups who have hooks in this public persona type of subjects.
I see. So multiple shadow groups, all trying to fish hook different subjects.
Yeah, and
I see.
It's kind of like a tiered thing. Shadow group hooks these public persona subjects. Public persona subjects tries to hook other subjects after that.
I see. So it's like this cascading effect of influence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what else happened? I know you continued your perceptions a little bit more on the next page, talking about this multiple groups competition of sorts.
So there's multiple shadow groups operating here, and they seem to be different. However, they're similar at the same time. Some sort of competition to hook more subjects to enact their agenda. They don't do their agenda themselves. Their job is to have people do it for them. And these public persona subjects being hooked have an impact either in the way of funds or law. They impact the general direction of a geographical area.
I see. Okay. Well, then you move on to focus 2. So what happened when you started moving to focus 2?
So focus 2, I see a subject that looks to be in a room that's dimly lit. They look to be alone, sitting in front of a desk or a table, and he's focused on something in front of him. So deep mind probing him in focus 2, I could see that this subject is deep in thought. His emotions feel heightened, and I could see something that looked like numbers or graphs, lines. It's lines on paper. His emotions are skewed to the negative.
Okay, all right. So we've got this central subject again, and he's sitting in a new environment. What else happened at focus 2?
So the subject here is still acting as an interface to other subjects. I don't feel the shadowy figures behind him at this point. It feels like he's doing something he shouldn't be doing, like overreaching. And it feels underhanded, whatever he's doing here. He's constantly looking over his shoulder. Like even he's uncomfortable with what he's doing in this focus 2. Subject A is walking a tightrope. Like it's a high risk, high reward type of situation in this focus. However, in this focus, as opposed to the last one, he doesn't feel the need to convince anyone or to get anything done. He can do as he feels like, and he feels like he's in control of the ball, and he calls the shots. So no permission, no subtlety. Focus 1 felt like persuasion. Focus 2, he's just pushing the button here.
I see. So he's being a little more direct, a little more cavalier with his actions, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I see you moved on to focus 3 following this target subject. So what else happened at this new focus?
So at focus 3, and here I'm probing for the outcome, I guess, it felt, I could feel a lot of negative emotions from subject A, a sense of fatigue or being defeated. It felt like he was down in the dumps. His environment still looks quite nice. Being down in the dumps is mostly like a mental state here. The near future feels like hiding and being in a retreat mode, or like biding his time. Long term, it feels like he'll fall back into the patterns he's familiar with. So long term, he's colluding with his cohorts, coming back to his group, his kind of people, including the shadowy group. They're like cockroaches. They just don't die. That's what I could feel here. It feels like they have a lot of power and resources, so they'll always be able to do something.
Wow. Okay. So, he's just sort of biding his time, laying low, being in this sort of negative feeling. So it doesn't really seem like he was very successful, but he's still around.
He's still around. He's down for the moment.
I see.
Yeah. I added a little note.
Okay.
To me, it feels like if you have all the money in the world, your priorities tend to change. Like it feels like this group, they have all the money in the world.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's very interesting. All right. Well, just to be clear, you do not know what the nature of the target is, correct?
No idea.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. So I'm going to reveal the target. The target for this deep news was, target for deep news, Chinese influencers of U.S. elections in 2024. So that was the general main target here. Let me hand you the paper. All right, so here we have subject A, which is the guy you were following through all 3 focuses. Subject A was the senior operative, or a senior operative, subject A, working for mainland China, who will be successful at interfering with the outcome of elections in the United States through any means and in any way. So we wanted to see some big honcho working with the Chinese government to try to interfere and having some success at that with interfering with our elections in the United States here. And interestingly enough, this was not a, the mainstream media tends to throw around the word hacker a lot, Russian hacker, Chinese hackers. This was not a hacking sort of thing. This was you described it best with your deduction. You deducted lobbyists. You said this was very political. You said he felt like a senator or something like that. So this was a very flesh and blood, face-to-face conversation, persuasion, fish hooking ordeal. So yeah, and well, we had 3 focuses, just to name these 3. We have focus 1 was the senior operator working for mainland China when most deeply involved and planning and influencing the election, the outcome of the 2024 election by any means during the target month for the given focus, that target month being March 2024. So we're doing this session here in February 2024. This is basically next month. And basically the next focus, focus 2, was him doing that same job in October, which is the month before the actual election. And focus 3 was him in November, which was the outcome of that election. So basically we were seeing a bit of an emotional roller coaster as he was doing his job right up to the election day. So and after the election. So yeah. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, outcome reading my session doesn't look like the outcome was what they wanted.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder which horse they're betting on, right?
Good question. Yeah. So whatever horse they're betting on, it wasn't the one that actually seems to have worked out in their favor. But also, interestingly enough, you said that they stick around. It's not like they lost and then they got kicked out. It's like they didn't succeed at what they were trying to do, and they're just here to stay. Though they're probably gonna maybe try again another day. It doesn't seem like they were removed from the equation after losing. Just you said it yourself. You said they were biding their time now and they're laying low. So this is a pervasive problem. This is not something that only applies to this election and goes away.
No, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, well, it's also your previous thing also in Focus 2 was quite interesting, because in Focus 2, which is the month right before, you also started to pick up, I guess, a little bit on this urgency of just he didn't really care about being as subtle anymore. He was just not really trying to persuade. The shadow government group feeling was not behind him anymore. He was just trying to do more risky things, looking over his shoulder and just, in your words, push the button and don't ask for persuasion to try to get the button pushed through other means subversively. He's just trying to push the button. He's looking at graphs and lines and analytical things. So, I mean, it was quite fascinating seeing that data come in at the Focus 2 point, because it really matched the focus, because that was what he was doing in October of 2024.
Wow. Well, this is interesting.
It's an interesting one.
You could kind of work your way backwards and see who would they want in office.
Yeah.
Who's the most puppetable person?
Yeah, well,
Right.
puppetability, I'm sure everyone who's watching, they have their own opinions about that sort of thing. But it's definitely something that's interesting to see through these remote viewing sessions. You get a different perspective on I guess what we would just say is behind the scenes politics that it really just would never find its way into the mainstream news. So, yeah. Anyway, that was fantastic. Great remote viewing. Do you got any other questions or comments?
No, not right now.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and on to the next one.
Yep.